I'm Eddie Speed, and this is NoteSchool. If you're new with us, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. On today's NoteSchool podcast, I'm interviewed by my old friend, Mr. Mitch Stephen. We've known each other since literally back in the 90s, done a ton of business together, and he has a podcast where he interviewed me and asked me, Eddie, who is the most likely motivated house seller in the market? We talk about that. We talk about the strategy. We talk about the psychology. This should be a very powerful episode. Enjoy.
This is Mitch Stephen with the 1000houses.com podcast, and I have a very special guest today. His name is Eddie Speed. We go way back. Probably don't even want to talk about how far we go back because that would make us old, okay? But we've been friends for a long time, and we have had endless, and I do mean endless conversations. Like they still haven't ended. We're going to have another conversation today after all these years about what's going on and how to navigate it and what's working and what's not working. Eddie, a little background on Eddie, probably one of the premier note buyers in the United States, bought over 40,000 seller finance notes in his career, billions of dollars worth. I'm pretty sure it's billions. You know, the guy's just been in the business for over a few decades. And whenever you stay in one focus that long, you got to learn some things and you got to know a little bit about what you're talking about. I mean, even the dumbest guys could be in the business this long and learn something, right? So, hey, Eddie, how you doing?
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So there's some interesting statistics out lately. We were talking earlier. Why don't we just start with that right there? Let's talk about who the likely motivated sellers are and some of the statistics that are out there right now that you might not believe as a listener.
So while everything is great in real estate, Mitch, there are some things that are underwater. There are some things in the people in the marketplace that are experiencing situations that it's not been pleasant for them. I like to say this, Mitch, for the small time landlord, the market has been great to them. The tenants have been terrible to them. And that means to me that there are a lot of people that, particularly with changes in the tax rates on the horizon, that people need to reposition themselves. And Mitch, sometimes it's smart to take some money off the table, right? Particularly if owning these rentals has caused way more of a job than they bargained for. Not long ago, Forbes, literally
Can I ask you a question though? So you said the market's been great to them, but the renters have been bad. Is this in large part because of the laws that they passed or the mandates that you couldn't collect rent? Or was it just crappy tenants?
Well, there's Mitch, call it, I'm going to use some round numbers, but I'm very close in these numbers, right? I'm not way off in percentage. Call it 17 million properties are owned by people that are defined as a small landlord, 5 houses or less. Some people say 4 houses or less, right? So that's kind of an industry definition. Urban Institute, the Census Bureau, a number of different people report these numbers slightly differently, but it's all within that realm. Okay, 50% of those small landlords don't have a mortgage. They got equity, right? And so people wonder why they haven't seen more defaults with small landlords. Not that there's not defaults in there certainly are. But a lot of these people, the reason they don't have a default is they didn't have a mortgage. But what's happened is, and Forbes did an article, I think that came out very recently, and there's quotes in magazines every week about it, or Black Knight does some really good reports on it. And basically, here's the deal. 58% of the small landlords, right? 58% experienced rent slippage during the virus. Now, that's an amazing number.
A horrible number if you're a landlord.
So what we have discovered is we call them burnout landlords, right? Because here's the thing, 3/4 of these landlords, Mitch, you can relate to this from your earliest days in the business when you didn't know better. They self-manage their rentals. What do you think their vetting process is?
Probably not very good.
So now you've defined pain. Mitch, I've known you. I heard you say it when I came on. I mean, I think I've known you around since 1995, 96, somewhere in there. And we've known each other really well a long time. And we know because we've seen so many people cycle through the business. People buy a rental thinking they're making an investment, and they found out they bought a job.
Absolutely.
So you have made the most money in your real estate business by defining a motivated seller. True?
Yep, that's where the rubber meets the road. You got to find a deal. You're
a rock star at it, right? So I see real estate investors, and a lot of them are really high volume guys, but I think they may be too generalized. And I'm trying to give like a window for like some people that aren't necessarily the top 100 house buyers that might be on today. Top 100 house buyers probably all know me and you, Mitch. They probably have already heard us say this offline somewhere. But the truth of the matter is, what if you're not a giant operator? And how do you want to go find a market that maybe the big guys, to be perfectly honest with you, might be passing over the top of? So here's the thing. Highly motivated seller with equity. And by the way, Mitch, they've owned that rent house for a few years. The market's been very kind to them. They have big appreciation, which means they have a tax liability. Mitch, what if you owned a rental and I said to you, Mitch, I have a strategy that most real estate investors don't know about and very few apply well. Your accountant may not suggest it to you. He would know about it, but he wouldn't think of it. And you might not have thought of it. Did you know that you could sell your property and defer your capital gains tax over a long period of time? Are you interested?
Man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, just the way you phrase that right there, that's beautiful. You're at least going to get heard.
So you and I know the deal, right? It's something that we've done tens of thousands of times now, which is called installment sales. And you are taking your income over the life of when you get the money back, when you collect it. But a landlord wouldn't have thought of that. A guy that owns 4 rentals doesn't really know the laws of that world. And his accountant is probably more likely an accountant of a dress shop than he is a real estate investor. So even though he passed his CPA, and I'm sure they're very smart, they don't know everything about every industry. This is niche. And it's a terrific opportunity for us to start the conversation of how you could take your gain over time. And that is that you're going to offer seller financing.
Yep. And like you said, most of the people won't think of that. But the way you prefaced it was great. Can you say that again?
So I do well in a house call situation, Mitch. So you're my customer, right?
Yeah, I'm a landlord. I got this house. I don't owe anything on it. It's worth $350,000 now because the last 2 years it exploded. And I'm worn out. I'm old. I don't want to work so hard anymore. These people are killing me.
Mitch, I'm a real estate investor, but I'm sort of a specialist, and I help people with strategies that not every real estate investor knows. In fact, most don't know the strategy that I'm going to tell you about, because there's a little known fact that the IRS has allowed for years and fully allows it today for you to stretch out your capital gains tax over many years. And I can show you how you could do that. Now, I'm not giving you tax advice, Mitch. I'm simply saying I'm a business guy with tax knowledge. Are you interested in learning about that?
Yes, I am. Tell me more. Okay, so, I mean, there's the pitch, guys, right there. I mean, it's not complicated. It's a lot better than just like, will you take payments? You know, they don't understand. Well, no, I don't want payments. What if I don't get my payments? Why would I take payments? He's telling you, tell them there's a reason for them to take payments, a great big reason with probably a dollar amount attached to it that you could figure out pretty quick if you had a calculator. You need 2 things. You need the calculator, and you need to know what income tax bracket he's in so you can do the math and say, this is what it saves you.
Yeah, and it's typical thinking for you and I, Mitch, because you and I own or finance property that we have capital gains in. You know that, like you, I'm also in the land business. In fact, it's a great business. I have a great partner, great relationship with the guys I'm involved with. And we have some land that we're selling, and we have a very good profit in it. But we don't want to go pay all that tax today, and we stretch it out. Well, that's our real story. So why wouldn't it be every landlord out there that has a lift in value and's got a tax liability?
Yep, same thing. I mean, I sell my houses with seller finance notes for a reason. And when someone comes and pays me off, I almost rue the day. You know what I mean? Like, damn it, I'm going to have to pay. I didn't need all this money right now,
It's exactly right.
Yeah. So where are you most likely to find these guys? Or I guess you're looking for, yeah, where are you most likely to find these people?
Well, the good news is everything I'm describing to you is data that anybody in the house buying business ought to be able to learn how to find. I mean, I can go scrape data with a lead, with a data source, a list source, and say, give me small landlords that have owned a house at least 3 years with either low equity or all equity. In fact, Mitch, we run a campaign ourselves. So, I'm in the note business, but part of my business is I buy these houses from landlords and create my own notes and of course sell them on a wrap. So I'm creating my own paper just like you do, right? But one of the reasons I did that, Mitch, to be perfectly honest with you, is I saw what an underserved market this was. And so I'm like, well, it's great to teach somebody else, but this is too good for us not to go do. And that's exactly what we shifted around and did. These landlords, the conversation about a tax strategy that they've never been suggested before is an amazing icebreaker. You caught it, right? But it's an amazing icebreaker to the conversation.
Yeah, it also shows you're different than everybody else. You're actually trying to help them out instead of just get a deal for yourself. You know what I mean? There's a lot to be said for giving before you ask. You know what I mean? Like, and then they hold you in a different place in their mind. You're not just one of those guys. You're that other guy that really brought some value to the table. Ups your odds a lot of being able to buy that house.
It also puts me in a different price band of a house bracket, Mitch. So our minimum house that we will solicit is worth $150,000 minimum. We won't even solicit, because we tell the list vendor, we won't even solicit a house that's worth less than $150,000, because Mitch, if they carry the financing for us, and let's just say an average of 2% interest, there's all kind of ways to finagle it and do, but just say an average of 2% interest. Even if I sell the house at a much lower interest rate than your normal rate, because on a $350,000 house, it's going to become rate sensitive. Yes. But if I even sell that house, Mitch, and do a wrap note, and I'm collecting 6% interest, I'm paying 2%, I'm getting 6%. I got a pretty good bank going.
Now you could damn near sell it for what you bought it for and come out you'd be making 4% on someone else's money, which is good. So then any equity or any discount you get below that starts moving your rate up, your ROI up pretty fast.
Yeah. And Mitch, here's what happens. If I set myself up correctly, what happens to me is this guy that owner financed it, this burnout landlord, he's going to wake up in 5 years, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years. I don't know when, but I have bought literally today. I guess I need to update my bio. I've bought over 50,000 notes. So I can tell you from experience, he's going to want to sell his note. And if I write the note correctly, I put a first right of refusal in it where some old note buyer like Eddie Speed can't get to it because the real estate investor's got his own first right of refusal to buy his own note. And then all of a sudden I can make profit way down the road by buying my own debt at a discount.
Yeah, and I can speak from experience. That almost always happens. When someone seller finance your house, it's just a matter of time till their circumstance comes up. And if you remind them every year, they'll find a circumstance, whether they have one or not, so that they have to get the money out, and so they have to sell at a discount. And when I say remind them, sometimes when we got our eye on a property that we'd like to reduce our debt on or strengthen a little bit in the profit department, we will send out letters, once a year, just saying, hey, if you ever think about selling that note, or if you ever need some cash, let me know and we'll do something with this note. Just plant the seed that they can liquefy that note anytime they want. They don't have to take the payments. What they will find out sooner or later when they call you to liquidate is that it's going to cost them a little bit to get their hands on that money. And
yeah, and there's even techniques. I don't want to get too complex in the conversation today, but there's techniques where I can buy some of the payments without all of the payments, right? I could buy 5 years, next 5 years of their payments, or next 8 years of their payments without having to buy all 20 years of it. And that's a partial, which, as you know, we perfected that strategy really well. And here's the thing, Mitch, once you buy those 5 years of payments, then they will end up selling you the rest of the note. And that's almost 100% of the time.
Well, it's kind of like crack cocaine, they got a little bit, got to have some more, got to have the rest of it. Can't leave it sit on the table now. So very interesting. So partials, Eddie used to tell me about partials all the time. And I'm a living proof. I'm a slow learner. I'll come to that conclusion when I'm damn well ready, Eddie, to accept a theory. And so one day, many years after Eddie'd been trying to explain it to me, I ran to Eddie all excited because I said, if I hold like, if I'd have just held 2 or 3 years of all the notes I sold in my life, I'd be worth another $1 billion. And Eddie looked at me and said, I've been trying to tell you that for at least 10 and a half years, the teacher appears when the student's ready. Sometimes you aren't ready. And it amazes me because even today, I'm pretty well versed in this game. And there are revelations that I wish I would have understood years ago that I'm just now starting to really sink down to my core, and I don't know what it is, but.
Mitch, I use you in an example all the time. You don't know this, but I do.
Do tell.
I bought Mitch well over 1,000 portfolios of notes, not 1,000 notes, 1,000 packages of notes, groups of notes, many from you in years past. And I tell people there are a few people in the business. One of them is my friend Mitch Stephen in San Antonio, that figured out how to recapitalize his note business. And then he built a bank. And so there are people think that they only want to do real estate investing and only want to create notes, right? But what the real art of the deal, Mitch, what you really perfected better than a lot of people that ever tried it in front of you, is that you figured out these recapitalization techniques. And when you do that, then all of a sudden you could, like if a guy wanted to sell 5 years worth of payments, you'd figure out a way to raise some private money and buy those 5 years worth of payments. It wouldn't have to come out of your checking account. And now all of a sudden, what you're really doing is you're dealing with some inexpensive private money that are putting money into your investments that have a much higher yield than your passive investor is getting. Now you own a bank. And that really is the art of the deal. And I use you as an example all the time. And I got to help you with some of those ideas. And some of them you came up on your own, and some of them you and I beat up 10,000 times together.
Yeah.
But this is why you've made your real estate business a wealth business. And you've done that really well, Mitch.
Well, thank you. And it took a village, because I never considered myself the sharpest pencil in the drawer, but I burn my hand on the stove enough times, I'll figure out which burner's hot, you know what I mean? And which one's not. So what I liked about, your mastermind that you had, and when, I went to your mastermind, you have this very interesting concept. Most people are going in trying to get a price, and you're like, screw the price. Just figure out what's more important to the guy, the price or figure out what the seller wants and buy orchestrate an offer that is in his ballpark and what he wants. And one of the things that you brought to the forefront of my mind and kind of said, damn, I know this, but I keep letting it go. It doesn't matter the price. If you get the right terms, it doesn't matter the price. And there's always a set of terms that you could win at any price. And here's a really bad example, but let's say I'm trying to buy a $200,000 house for $1 million, and the guy wants $1 million, and the house is clearly only worth $200,000. I can always make up a set of terms that I can win at. And that set of terms off the top might be, yeah, I can buy it for $1 million. I just can't have a payment for 30 years. I mean, that's a crappy example, but there's always a set of terms that'll outrun the problem of the price.
That's it.
And this one, basically, I won't be alive in 30 years, so who cares about making the payment? It's a bad example, I understand, but get my point.
Well, and once again, I think creative financing is a mindset. I like it. So I wake up a lot of mornings, Mitch, very focused on the next idea, the next strategy, the next position. I'm gonna be like really super transparent with you and the audience. Okay. Everything about installment sales, everything about burnout landlords, none of that, as you well know, Mitch, is new with me. None of that's new. Like I've made it a cornerstone of something I've been focused on certainly since the virus is the burnout landlord. And installment sales is something that you and I've been dealing with our whole career in the business because it's how we've sold property. So none of those were new ideas. So what happened is the new administration said they were going to make some tax proposals, which are pretty sure that there's going to be, most of those are going to end up down the way, particularly related to capital gains. Now, Mitch, there's a big monster on the horizon that Biden has proposed, which is if you have capital gains of over $1 million, that they're essentially going to double the capital gains rate. Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's a big problem.
So when that came out initially, like for a period of time, I wasn't clear that it was only on $1 million and above. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best sales hook I've ever seen. I'd have voted for Biden if I'd have known he'd come up with such a great idea for me. Right.
No, you wouldn't have.
So
I know you too well, man. Don't start lying now, Eddie.
Because I'm like, everybody's going to have to sell this year and take installment sales, or next year they're going to pay double the tax. So that's what initially gave me the idea on laying the income down or the tax liability down. It's standing up, right? It's due all at one time, lay it down and then pay it over a long period of time. And so then all of a sudden in more investigation, okay, it's the guys under $1 million, their tax rate aren't going to be as affected, not double. Okay. But then all of a sudden it dawned on me, wait a minute, they've never thought of this. Then all of a sudden, all the things that I was going to go tell the marketplace because they'd never considered it, I realized that the small landlords never thought of this anyway. And his accountants probably never thought of it because his accountant's not like your and my accountant. He's not used to note transactions.
Isn't it amazing, Eddie, how this exact theory that the way the pitch, the whole mindset of looking at it would have been a great pitch even 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Anytime. And it takes us all these years to like go, oh my God, what if you'd have had that tactic, in the beginning, from the very beginning, you'd be worth another fortune. You know what I mean?
The old saying, right? It only takes 5 minutes to come up with a great idea. You just don't know which 5 minutes it's going to be.
Yeah. This one's, 3 decades down the road. I have revelations like that all the time. And that's one of the reasons I do these podcasts is because I get to talk to some pretty damn smart people, i.e. Eddie Speeds. He's no dumbass, especially when you start talking to him about what he knows. I talked to a guy the other day. He says, what happens? How many houses do you have to look at to buy a house? Everybody throws out like 25, whatever. I said, yeah, I don't know, 25, I guess. He says, what are you doing with the other 24? I said, I walk out of the house. I never look back. He goes, have you ever thought about having a real estate agent in your office and getting your closers, teaching your acquisition people, once they realize they can't buy it, to go ahead and set the appointment to sign the listing, not to talk about a listing, to sell the listing? And I said, no. He says, well, let me show you how it works. We started a month ago on that, and we've closed 7 and got 7 commissions already. And I think to myself, in a career, I bought 2,500 houses in my career. And if you go through 25 to buy one, that's thousands of houses, thousands upon thousands. If I had picked up every, 7 or 10, every 25 houses and commissions. Anyways, my point is these revelations keep happening even to the old dogs. Like, you and me, you can teach old dogs new tricks. Probably the old dog invents the new trick because they keep trying.
My sales manager, Derek, he was sales manager at big car dealerships, sales manager or finance manager. But most profitable entity in a car dealership is finance department. It's not the sales department. It's not car sales. So he used to be more of a finance manager than he was just sales manager because he controlled the biggest profit in the dealerships. These are big dealerships, guys that have 50 sales guys, right? And he says an old manager that he used to work for had a great saying, and that was, bad habits are built in good times, and good habits are built in bad times. So you and I have dealt with many years in the business over our stretch in the business where you could just make that 65-cent offer and buy all the houses you wanted. And now all of a sudden we're scrambling around there throwing out 90-cent numbers, right? And so now all of a sudden, the biggest, it seems to me, Mitch, the biggest guys in the business this year is their most profitable year. But most of the smaller operators who don't have the marketing and the sales process as tight as the biggest operators, they're not doing as good. This is why I bring this up to the smaller guy. This is your unique advantage in the market. You may be at a disadvantage against the biggest house buyers in the business because you don't have the marketing machine they have, but they're not focused on this. I'll promise you they're not, because I know a whole bunch of them. This is a niche.
Yeah, it certainly is. Eddie, I really appreciate this time with you. And I know that you're a busy guy. I don't want to occupy all your time. Tell us a little bit about, your educational process, and we're going to send them over to the show notes. I'll have a link, 1000houses.com / Eddie Speed. Okay. And we'll get over the show notes, but tell us about your educational opportunities and what you're offering to people that might, need a change or need to reinvent themselves. There's a lot of money in the note buying business, and it's just like any other business. So you got to get educated and you got to get good at it. You got to know what you're doing. And if you do, it can open up a whole other door. So tell us about your educational opportunities.
So Mitch, today, I believe for somebody looking at creative financing or notes, I think there are the three biggest opportunities are this: burnout landlords, for the obvious reasons that we've been discussing for the last few minutes, right? Secondly, there's 4.5 million loans that aren't making a payment. So when everybody tells you that there's no inventory, let me tell you something. There's an avalanche of defaulted loans coming down the pike. Call it an avalanche. And you can buy those notes. You can buy them at a good discount, and there's a huge profit with them. And so the non-performing note business, Mitch, probably this cycle could be even better than 2010, believe it or not, because we're not in such a injured real estate market. 2010, you could buy these notes for pennies on the dollar, but then you had to go full with them and sell them. So non-performing notes is the second big opportunity. And the third big opportunity, which you know very well, is that there's been not a better time really to offer seller financing, because we're in a real estate boom, but a credit crisis. 35% of the people that could get a mortgage before the crisis cannot get one now, right? This virus has caused mortgage underwriting to draw in, which means there's more people, good people, qualified people with big down payments that need seller financing than we've seen in many, many years. Those are the three. Like, if you understand those voids, there's some huge market opportunities to work around that. So we have a training process. We would love to get somebody to at least just calm down and hang out with us just a day, and just then unfold these things and see, like, if this market is as Eddie's describing, well, how could I do it? And then somebody gets a sense of how it works. So we got a good book, and I named the book after the movie Moneyball, right? The baseball movie, because the Moneyball story is a guy that just looked at the same baseball game everybody else had been watching for 100 years and just looked at through another set of eyes. And so I wrote a little book, and it's about that. And it's a pretty good read, right? It's about like how to look at it. It's like you described, how to look at a real estate deal in a different way. And then they can progress to us and go to a class if they'd like to do it. And just spend enough time with us to see what is this creative financing thing. It's been pretty good to old Mitch Stephen,
Very good. And one thing about education, you can choose to go it on your own and go to the internet and learn all you can, which is not a bad way. You can learn a lot of stuff there, but you're going to pay. You're going to pay one way or the other. You'll pay in lost opportunity, lost expertise, lost making mistakes, maybe even getting sued, doing things you're not supposed to be doing. You just don't know. Or you can just pay someone to go get right to it and have the confidence that someone who knows what they're doing can advise you on any of your questions. And that's like a different way to proceed, a way to proceed with a lot less anxiety. And I I will argue till the cows come home. It's going to be cheaper. You might not think it's cheaper because you see that number all at one time there. What going without specialized information, they're going to chisel at you and you'll never know how much you really lost, but I guarantee it's going to be way more than you would have paid. I guarantee it. Ask me how I know. I like to tell everyone I graduated from La Calle U. How's your Spanish, Eddie? La Calle means the street.
The street, okay.
And it is the most expensive diploma you will ever get. And matter of fact, they don't ever even give you one. They just kick you down the road, spit on you, grind your head into the dirt, and then say, get up if you can, you little bastard, you know? And you look up and you spent $250,000 in lost opportunity or mistakes or lawsuits or, you know, a house you shouldn't have bought because you didn't know to check X or Y or Z. And so, you know, the thing is, you got to be committed when you go, though. Either way, you got to commit. So get committed. I want you to go to 1000houses.com/Eddie Speed, EDDIE Speed, SPEED. And over there will be all the show notes. He'll give away, I don't know, you giving away a copy of your book, or what are you giving away? You giving away?
Yeah, I've got, there's a copy of a book and we've got a little presentation in there they can watch and kind of take them a little further down the road about why people would want to learn this, why it matters to them. And I think it'll be very helpful for them.
Yeah. You know, I know you may or may not want me to bring this up, but either way, you had this little calculator and it said, no matter what the price of this property was, this calculator, if you plug in the variables, it'll tell you how, you know, what offers to make to get the kind of IRR you want. You know, and it was an amazing little calculator. I love it because it just solves so much thinking, you know, or guessing is usually what we do. We just kind of, well, this will probably be good enough. So we thought they offer. I mean, that calculator like really, really let you know what you were doing exactly to the T. Is it still available through you? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a certain level of training people how that calculator, and you know, I developed that with a guy that was in the mastermind with us, right? And I had the idea because once again, I just think my idea is like people don't know what they don't know until they know it. And so I think you've brought up a good example today that we can sort of ignore price if we're clever enough in structuring terms.
Yeah, okay, so example, that calculator would say, you know, there's a cash price that you can make 15% ROI on, but there's also a set of terms that you can make 15% IRR where you can pay more than the cash price, and you could plug them in, and it was just very eye-opening at really the disparities in the prices, and it's the same ROI.
Exactly.
It was really eye-opening, and I think it's really cool. So again, go to 1000houses.com/Eddie Speed. That'll get you over the show notes. There'll be a place to contact. You can see his little one-day events, you know, where you can at least go and spend a day and kind of immerse yourself to see what the possibilities are and why it makes sense in this market, really any market, but the angles we're taking in this market. You know, everyone's had to adjust their angle. I don't care who you are. Everyone has had to adjust their angle because of COVID. We all had to adjust back in 2008 and 10 when the recession hit. I mean, all business is the art of reinvention every cycle or so. And we never know how long the cycles are. So we're always prepared to reinvent. And so you got a guy here who's on the cutting edge. Check it out, 1000houses.com/Eddie Speed, and spend a day with him. What could it hurt? I mean, you know, and the cool thing is there's usually some pretty sharp people in that audience too. So your lunches and your breaks and your dinners in the evening are some pretty jam-packed conversations. That's one of the things that I think we lost when you had the Zoom meetings and everything because of COVID. You know, going to a seminar, conventions, you know, are you doing all this stuff online or do you have it formal meetings?
The one days for the most part are virtual just because it's too hard for somebody to travel for one day. We still have advanced classes that we do both ways, live or whatever and stuff. And you're right. And I look at some of the friendships and relationships that you literally met because of coming to classes with me, hanging out long time ago, like Fenolio, there's relationships that have lasted 20 years, you know.
Yeah, I met you because I left the comfort of my home and I went someplace, and look at all these years, we're still here. That happened during the break. That happened during lunch. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't go to see Eddie. We didn't know who each other were, and there's a good reason why we didn't know. All right, my friend, anything you want to add before maybe we wrap it up?
Mitch, you're a good guy. You have been a great contribution to the business. Congratulations on your health. You look awesome, and I know you're doing good. And I love you, pal.
I love you too, Eddie. It's been a long time and a great friendship for a long time. It's always my pleasure to talk to you because I always get something when I talk to you, always. And I hope I return the favor sometime. If not, just send me a bill, okay?
Yeah.
All right, this is Mitch Stephen with the 1000houses.com podcast. We've been talking to Eddie Speed. Check him out. Go over to 1000houses.com/Eddie Speed and go over there and get a free copy of the download. Find out when he's giving some of these online one-day events so that you can feel around and see if this is for you. I have a notion that whether you do or you don't, you're going to see the possibilities because Eddie's really good at painting that picture. And that's one of the reasons why he's one of the best educators around, because he can really paint the picture and he can put it down into the simplest layman terms that you can impossible. Because if he was too complicated, I would have never been able to follow him. The guy can speak English like a cowboy, you know? So there you go. All right, we're out of here. Thanks for stopping by to get you some Eddie Speed. We'll see you on the next episode.
If you're still with us, you're awesome. If you're looking to take your investing career up a notch, generating true passive income and creating wealth for generations, or you're just getting started trying to figure this all out, come see us at NoteSchool.com/TV. There we'll have information that at whatever level in the business you're at, we'll be able to take you to that next level that you want to get to. Come see us at NoteSchool. We'll see you next time.